6 years ago, I bought this cabin and the surrounding forest here in northern Sweden. But I've never before showed the whole property. So today, I'm gonna walk you through what was actually included. How much forest we own, what I would have done differently if I bought a place like this today, and also share our plans for the future, now when we're becoming parents in just a few weeks. So let's start with the basics. I found this property back in 2017, and it has in total, or it had 4 cabins on the property. This main cabin back here, and then a sauna cabin, and then 2 extra cabins that we called guest houses, though we have mostly filled them with tools and other debris, to say the least. And now we're building a 5th building up there in the forest that is an A-frame that is going to be my studio in the future. The main cabin is about 70 square meters on the living area, and the rest of the cabins are about between 15 to 20. And the whole property, with all the forest and everything that we own, that is 2 hectares, or also 5 acres, or 20,000 square meters. That's the entire property that we own. And for all of this, I only paid $28,000. That's it. My little place here in paradise for that little amount of money. To me, it's still insane, but I'm very happy and I'm very fortunate to have found this place. But let me show you around and what else is included and what to also think about when you're buying a property like this. So viewed from this angle, our property extends to basically where you see the forest is getting very dense over there, a bit darker. So way back there, and then all the way up there to the A-frame, and then way past that one, and then all the way down there to what we call the main gravel road. One of my absolute favorite things about this property is that we don't have any neighbors whatsoever. We have some summer houses nearby, but they are just here a few weeks a year, which is very nice. But the closest full-time living neighbor or person, or whatever you want to call her, is a old lady that lives maybe a 15 minutes walk from here. So, and we're in total, I think, 5 or 6 or 7 people living on this gravel road that is about 4 kilometers. So we're quite spread out, but everyone knows each other. Everyone is very friendly, and I love having them here. But I also love that I don't live so close by, because I really love, you can walk out here in the summer completely butt naked and you don't have to care about anything, which I think is very amazing. And we don't have any drinking water in the cabin, so whenever we want to drink or take a shower or take a bath, that is done right here. This is basically a frozen pond that I'm standing on right here. So take all the drinking water from here. Freshest water ever, tastes amazing. And it all comes from a cold spring up in that direction, from the mountain, pouring all the way down, coming down there. And this whole area right here is a big pond, which is very lovely. I would say one of the biggest misconceptions, that's a tricky word to say. One of the biggest misconceptions I would say that one of the biggest misconceptions about us and our lifestyle is that a lot of people think that we're living off-grid, which we're not. We're very much connected to the grid. We have an electricity pole right behind us here that I'm going to show you. We've never strived for being off-grid. I've never wanted to be off-grid, but I can understand that people think that we're living without electricity when they can see this lifestyle without running water and so on. It's very simple, but I've never wanted to live off-grid. I like having electricity. I like having the lamps and the computers and everything. And yes, that is possible with batteries and so on, absolutely. But I like being connected to the grid. I'm a on-grid living person. So here you can see the electricity pole. Like a big wire right here connected to the gravel road, and this other one here that is, I don't know where that's connected, if I have to be completely honest, but I can show you as well that now the cable is actually in the ground, so it goes from this pole right here and then in the ground and then all the way up to the cabin, but it actually used to be connected through the air So there was a wire from up there going through the air all the way to the very top of the cabin right there, which I thought was so ugly. But they actually removed that like a year or two before we moved in, which I'm very happy about. This is just way prettier. I would hate to have a cable hanging in the air crossing the entire yard. While we're already on the topic of electricity, I want to show you another very luxurious thing here on the property. I have to move a bit off the road. Okay, completely sunken into the ground. Yeah, that's my knee. Or thigh, actually. Let me be honest. But this is what I wanted to show you. This guy, right here, is our pole that is giving us fiber optics, which is a luxurious thing that I got installed 2 years ago, maybe, something like that. And it's allowing us to have, believe it or not, 1,000 megabits a second up and 1,000 megabits a second down, which is insanely fast. Especially when you're thinking about that we're in the middle of the forest. I used to have actually way slower internet when I was living in the city, and now we're living out here and it's just super duper mega fast. And I will say it's actually thanks to the municipality around here, because they understood that if people should be able to move back to the countryside, they need to invest in this kind of fiber optic grid system so we can all be connected. I wouldn't be able to do YouTube if I didn't have this, or I would be able to because I did in the beginning. I can tell you that story very quickly. Every time I uploaded the video before I had the fiber optics, I took our car and 2 car batteries extras, my laptop and a portable modem. I drove up the mountains, or if it was the winter, I hiked up the mountain because I couldn't get up with the car. And then I found a good spot where I have kind of good reception with the modem. And then I sat there for about 5 to 6 hours each time I'm uploading a video. So the whole Sundays where I usually do upload just disappeared. I sat there every Sunday just waiting. And sometimes I was even so unlucky, or one time I was actually very clumsy. I uploaded the wrong file. Realized that halfway through, had to cancel it, go back to the cabin, get the right file, go back up again, sit another 6 hours, and then upload a video. So it used to take 6 hours, like I said, to upload, but with the fiber optics, it takes about 45 seconds to upload a video, so it's a tiny bit faster. In Sweden, there's no specific law that tells you how you should take care of your forest. But of course, the more you take care of it, the better it grows and the more money the forest is worth, basically. So you can see here that what I did last summer, I cleared this whole area from brushes and small branches. There's, of course, a small one sticking up here and there. But this, you can see all the way up to the cabin, but it used to look like this. Can you see the difference? All of these like short little mini trees sticking up all over the place and also hiding the view a bit. So I like this view a bit better, or way better actually, if I had to be honest. And the more open it is, the more wind it becomes. And the more wind, the less mosquitoes. So when it comes to owning property, and specifically owning forest, it's also important to remember that even though you're clearing it out and making it a bit more pretty and so on, it's really important to not interfere too much. Because when a tree falls over, it's actually really good to leave it there as well. Because it's necessary for the bugs and then for the birds and the wildlife in general. So even though we like to control things as humans, it's actually good things to leave nature to do nature stuff. And this right here is the road we're using to drive up to the cabin from the gravel road, the main road. So you can see the cabin, yeah, right there. But the tricky part is that right here, this is the property line. So we own the road all the way up to the cabin, but this road is not ours. But we have something called a servitut, like basically a verbal or even in writing agreement with the neighbor that owns the property over here, that we are allowed to use his road. year-round, no matter what, as long as we, of course, take care of it. And here's the continuation of our road, or the road we're sharing with the neighbor. So our mailbox is way down there, and then our trash can is even more that way. So it's like 600 or 700 meters from our cabin. But this is the road to the cabin, and that's the road down to the gravel road and the other neighbors. One thing that I've learned the hard way when it comes to owning property this far up in the forest is that maintaining the road that you have to drive up on is a lot of work. Especially now in the winter, it's continuously just plowing snow, shoveling. It never ends. And in the spring, it gets really muddy. So we invested in digging new ditches last year, I think it was, to drain the water a bit easier, because every spring it just got flooded. The road got destroyed and we had to fix it, add more gravel so it will be raised a bit. And we also had to build new tunnels under the road, like lay in some pipes so that water could travel more smoothly off the property, because our whole property is basically leaning down towards the cabin and then down towards the main road. So it's a lot of work putting into trying to get the snow out of the way and also the water out of the way later in the summer. That's something I didn't really think about. One day I'm hopefully gonna invest in like a tractor or something like a 4-wheel drive thing, a ATV or something, just to be able to shovel the snow a bit simpler. Because now we're either doing it by hand, and that takes about 7 hours to finish from the cabin down to the mailbox, and that's a whole day's work. That's quite draining, to say the least. But if it's come too much snow to handle for just doing it by hand, we hire a guy called Stefan, and he comes by and just like come with his major tractor, shovel everything away in like 10 minutes. And that's very convenient, but it also costs money. So it's smart to try to do it by yourself as much as you can, at least, to save some money. But yeah, think about that when you're buying a property. It's a lot of work. I would still not move this cabin if I could, because I really like that we have so far to the main road. We can't hear anyone, we can't see anyone, and I really love that. But also know that it's a lot of work going into it if you want to be that secluded. The main cabin is about 115 years old, so it has a lot of history. And the logs that you see here behind me, that's the only walls that exist. There's no insulation on the inside, there's no insulation on the outside. This is a very simple cabin. The families that have been living here before, or actually just owning it, I guess, has only used it as a summer house. We are the first one that actually live here permanently, which I do understand as well, because when it's this uninsulated and very simple, it's kind of challenging to live here year-round, especially when it gets to like minus 34 degrees Celsius, like it was a few weeks ago. Then you don't do much else than just trying to keep warm. Even though we've been renovating this cabin like crazy, it's always been super important to me to not interfere too much with the cabin's soul, if that makes sense. Because it can really feel that it has so much history, and I don't want to interfere with that. I of course want to upgrade, I want to fix things, I want to make things better, but I am very conscious of what materials we're using, what kind of style we're decorating in, so it feels like it's fitting the cabin and so on. And that's also one recommendation I want to make when it comes to buying a new property or new land in general. It doesn't need to be a cabin in the forest, but anywhere you're buying property, before you start making any changes, and this is one of the mistakes I made actually, before you make any changes at all, live in this area for at least a year. Because if you start moving stuff around, you start changing things, you don't really know how it is to live in this place. If I take our garden, for example, I didn't build that until year 3, and that was very intentional, because I realized that if I build the garden in the wrong place, it's gonna screw up the whole flow of the garden. And I got that recommendation from my old teacher when I studied organic farming. So like they told us to wait a year at least before you start planting bushes and trees and so on, because you don't exactly know where your paths are. Like, where are you going? Where are you leaving the property? Where do you create paths on your property? And then place those berry bushes and apple trees and so on based on that, because you think you have a good idea of where you're living and where you're moving, but you don't. It's gonna change, it's gonna evolve. So make sure that you really investigate the place, live in the place, figure it out first before you make any changes. When it comes to what kind of trees we have in our forest, it mostly consists of birch tree that you see right here. Pine trees are these big ones, and then we have spruce trees a bit all over the place. But here is one thing I want to show you as well, what that made me fall in love with this place even more. Do you see these things right here? Or maybe clearer over here actually? These guys. This kind of moss only grows if it's really good air quality. And I remember it so clearly. The day I drove up here to check this place out, to potentially buy it, I stepped into the car in the city, drove 6 hours to this place, and the first time I opened the door was when I was here at the property. And I remember opening the door, taking a deep breath, and like, oh yeah, that's how air should smell and feel like in your lungs. It was just like a completely different experience. It's fresh and it just feels right. Completely different feeling comparing to the city. And it just, yeah, it feels very, very real and very, very healthy. Hey Nala. Hey. Hey. Yeah, you sound so dangerous. We've actually talked about making a fence around the entire property. Nala, can I please speak to the guys? Yeah, hey. We've actually talked about building a fence around basically the entire property so we can have the dogs loose. That will be very good for them and for us as well, because now you can see I have them loose, but I can only do that because it's very much deep snow right now and they would sink into the snow and not get anywhere, and they can't escape right now because they have such a strong hunting instinct. So in the spring, autumn or summer I can't have them loose at all. So it would be so nice to one day get up a fence that we can't see from the cabin, but it's still there surrounding the property, so we can just let them loose and have a good time here as well, because it feels a bit boring to have them in a long leash. We mostly have them inside with us all the time, but it would be good for them to just run around and have a fun time. So building a good fence around this place would be such a good investment for their lives and our lives. So I hope we can do that in the future sometimes, but we'll see how and when. When we're already on the topic of future plans, I can tell you that over here somewhere we're gonna drill our very own well. So we get some clean drinking water all year round, because the pond down there, you know, it's drying out in August sometimes, and that's a bit unreliable. So we're gonna drill our own well here and then probably put a pump house in there with the pumps and everything. So pipes going from that little house out to a well somewhere here. And it's, if we're lucky, it's actually gonna be happening already in April. I took just the price of it from a company, and they're charging about $11,000 for it, so it's a lot of money, but I think it's totally gonna be worth it. So a well will be going from there somewhere here and then up to the cabin, and at least we will have drinking water in the kitchen, and that will be a major improvement for our future little family. But I've actually played around with maybe crowdfunding the whole drilling the well project, because as I said, the price is around $11,000 just to drill the hole and getting a pump, but not building the pump house and everything around that. So it's a lot of money, and yeah, we do earn money on YouTube and everything, absolutely, but to get there a bit faster, I thought about crowdfunding it, but as a Swedish person that goes against my not principles, but it's like in Sweden we're raised to not stick out or ask for any help in that way. So it feels a bit not weird, but I don't know. I'm playing around with the idea. Maybe that's going to be a thing. What do you think about it in that case? I would love to hear your thoughts. But we'll see how we're going to do it. And for those of you who are wondering how I found the cabin and the whole property, I actually found it online on a site called Blocket, and there are many other sites to go on as well, but that's where I found mine. We contacted the guy, and I found the cabin online on a Tuesday. I think we drove up the very next day and bought it that same day. That's how certain I was when I found it. You know, when you just have that gut feeling. I didn't know exactly how to fund it, or if I would even get a loan or anything. I just shook hands with the guy and we agreed on that it's mine and no one else can buy it from him. So I'm very happy he kept his word, and it actually turned out to be mine a few weeks later when everything was approved and signed. But this cabin is placed, like you noticed, in the middle of the forest. So a lot of people have been asking, like, what do you do for groceries? Where do you go shopping? And it's about a half an hour in a car to the nearest grocery store. It's so tricky to say. It's a town called Sollefteå. The town has everything you could ever ask for, like grocery stores, clothing shopping, hardware stores, a lot of friendly people. I couldn't ask for a better town to live next door to. When I first moved out here in 2018, I lived there completely alone. I didn't have a car back then, so I had to walk to the nearest grocery store. So I spent about 6 or 7 or 8 hours sometimes just walking back and forth, depending on if it was summer or winter. That was not an easy period, but I was too stubborn and too much of a minimalist to buy a car, and I was also too broke to buy a car. So I just had to walk. That was the only option. Now I can look back on it as a funny story, but I remember it being very, very tough. And today I'm very, very happy that we have a car so we can drive all the way. Even though the property was very cheap to begin with $28,000, I've spent way more on renovations since then. Way, way more. I mean, just the A-frame, you know, up there. I've spent over $30,000 on that so far, and it's not even done yet. To build the sauna was a lot of money as well over there. Building a woodshed, putting in new electricity. We renovated the roof this summer completely. So if you buy something like this that is this cheap, you have to be okay with that it's gonna be a lot of money and a lot of time on renovation as well. So I don't want to romanticize it in any way. I just want to be honest and tell you that this kind of properties, they might be simple and might be quite cheap, but it's also a ton of work. I would say it's actually more of a lifestyle than anything. But I would never change anything for the world. I love this place. I never want to move. I want to make it better and better by each year and just help it improve and build on it to become even better and homier. Even though we obviously have a lot of trees here on our property, we still buy about maybe 80% of what we use in a year when it comes to firewood. So we have this compartment completely filled up, and then we have that compartment completely filled up. So we buy it from a guy that lives about 10-15 minutes away from here. So he drives it on his tractor all the way up to us here, which is very convenient. I used to cut all the firewood myself, but it took way more time than you can ever imagine, because we're using firewood to keep warm, to boil water, to cook food. We're using so much, and now we're even using it for the sauna. So we're spending a lot of firewood, and it's not only a time saver, it's also the matter of like, I don't want to cut down the trees nearest to the cabin. It will look so ugly. So I'd rather keep this space beautiful as it is. But it's nice to know that we can cut down some trees when we need to, and we're easily self-sufficient for many, 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 many years if we want to, but I choose not to, due to many reasons, as I just told you. But it's mostly just to save time, because even though I love cutting firewood and finding the right trees and transporting here and standing here just cutting and cutting and cutting hour after hour, I really enjoy it. It's almost like a meditation for me. But the amount of time I save by just buying it, it's just so much worth it, because then I can spend that time on making these videos or renovating the cabin and so on. And that feels like a way smarter way of using my time. Normally I upload a video here on YouTube almost every week, but now I haven't actually been uploading for almost 5 weeks. This is the longest break I've ever taken, and it's actually because me and Christine decided to go down to Denmark to take a bit of a break. We needed it. The baby is here in just a few weeks, so we needed some time for ourselves, not be working, and just have a really good time. And I've actually filmed all of these 3 weeks that we spent in Denmark, and I put it together to a personal vacation vlog. Christine and I are right now on vacation in Denmark. We're actually at her parents' summer house right now. We're gonna spend a few weeks here just relaxing and actually taking some well-deserved time off. So we're gonna go into Copenhagen, eat at some fancy places and get some good food. And I'm gonna go and have a completely new experience and at an activity I've never tried before. So that's gonna be something new. And I'm also working on 2 new big projects that I wanna show you. But I decided not to upload it here on YouTube because it was such a personal and behind the scenes video. I made it very rough, very raw. It didn't really fit here on YouTube. It was a way different video than I usually do here. So I actually decided to upload it to Patreon. And Patreon is a way for you to support me as a creator so I can build these well projects or extend the cabin or do these renovation projects. So if you want to support that and also get these behind the scenes videos that I make on vacations and here in the cabin as well. So if you want to get access to that, there's a link down in the description. That would be very much appreciated if you feel like that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys very soon again. I hope it's not going to be another 5 weeks. Talk to you soon.